Hi science students, we're going to look at an example here which fits into criterion 7 of the course, the bonding and structure type unit, and a typical style of question where you're presented with a table with some information about some different substances. They could be elements, they could be compounds, and it's all about identifying the bonding types: metallic, ionic, covalent molecular, or perhaps covalent network, and identifying those bonding types of the substances from the properties that are presented in the table. So what I've also got here, and you can access this on your information sheet, is a table which has the general characteristics of the different structures. So this could be or will be highly useful to you when you encounter a table like this. Now the first question asks, what is the likely type of bonding in substance Z? Carefully explain your answer. Okay, so we look at substance Z, and that's of course this one here, and we're told melting and boiling point, they are reasonably high, not exceptionally high, but this substance will conduct electricity in the solid and molten states. So if we look across here, we see that the only substance that will do that is metallic. So metals will conduct in the solid and molten state. Okay, and of course we're talking about electrical conductivity there. Now, we're aware that the melting and boiling point of metals is quite high, and this metal is not exceptionally high, but not all metals have extremely high melting and boiling points. Mercury, for instance, and I don't think that this one is mercury, but mercury is a liquid at room temperature, even though it's a metal. This one, I've got a feeling it might be something like gallium. I don't know, you could look it up. But despite the fact that the melting and boiling points aren't exceptionally high, this must be a metal because it conducts in the solid and molten states, and it's the only substance that will do that are metals. So let's go about answering this question. Or actually, I'll say substance Z must be a metal as it conducts electricity in both solid and molten states. Okay, so we'd probably be looking at a mark for identifying the fact that it's a metal, and then our explanation about the conductivity would lead to our next mark. Okay, so moving on to the next part with the same tables, but part B, which one of the substances is most likely to be a non-metallic element, and what type of bonding is likely to be present? Now, one thing I didn't do on part A was give you a chance to pause and have a think about it yourself, but now that you've seen me deduce one of these, maybe you would like to pause for part B and see if you can reason this on your own, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to have a go at it now. Which one of the substances is most likely to be a non-metallic element? Okay, well, we can rule out Z because we said that's a metal. So it's out of X and Y. So if we look at the melting and boiling points here, X has quite low ones. So looking over here, covalent molecular, low melting and boiling point, and Y has quite high ones. So almost bordering perhaps on very high. So looking at perhaps a very high or high. Okay, could even be a metal, although it doesn't conduct Y does not conduct in the solid state as a metal does, so it's definitely Y is not a metal. But I would deduce that Y is probably an ionic compound because it's a non-conductor in the solid state, but it conducts in the molten state. So we're thinking Y is ionic, and the melting and boiling points being quite high are consistent with that. Now, substance X has low melting and boiling points. It doesn't conduct in the solid or liquid state. Okay. Now, it's entirely possible that it could be a covalent molecular substance or just a pure element of a non-metal of some kind, but it's certainly non-metallic. Okay, so let's write down something about that. Maybe you want to pause at this stage and write something on your own, but I'll show you what I'm going to write shortly. Okay, so substance X as it has low melting and boiling points. Oops. No, melting and boiling melting and boiling points, and is a non-conductor in both states. Now, that's probably enough because we've identified substance X. We'd get a mark for that, and we've given our explanation. However, it's probably not going to hurt to mention that substance Y is most likely ionic. Okay, so substance Y is most likely an ionic compound because it has high melting point and boiling point. I'll just go a bit of shorthand there, and is a conductor in the liquid state only. So maybe a little bit of overkill there, but it certainly wouldn't hurt perhaps to eliminate substance Y somehow from the running. Perhaps some might even say that you could determine the substance Y is an ionic compound and eliminate it, and then say substance X must be the one. But anyway, there's an answer for that one. Okay, so moving along to part C. What type of bonding is likely to be present between the two elements? Okay, so it's a little, the question could be written a little bit more clearly. They're talking about the two elements we've identified in part A, which was element Z, which was a metal, and element X, which we said was a non-metal element. Okay, and well, look, let's go ahead. I think you should pause the video and see if you can come up with an explanation for this. Then I'll have a go at it. Right, so metal and non-metal, you'll be familiar that leads to an ionic compound. So if X and Z were to, or Z and X were to react, metal, non-metal, we would get an ionic compound. So since Z is a metal and X is a non-metal, the likely compound formed would be ionic. And I suppose, well, they've asked what type of bonding is likely to be present. So maybe we would say the likely bonding. But look, I think it's okay either way. So the likely bonding in this compound would be ionic. So just reading a little more carefully there, perhaps I could word that a bit differently. Okay guys, so remember these table type questions, you can use the table from the information sheet to help you with those, and it's about deducing different bonding types of mystery substances from some information given. Thanks for watching.